My name's Owen. I'm 31. And if you'd asked me 6 months ago, I would have told you my relationship with my family was complicated. That was before it escalated to betrayal. Not the screaming match kind of betrayal, but the cold, smiling, stab you with a spoon kind that makes you question if you ever really belonged to them in the first place. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. That's what my mom called me. My sister, Heather, was the creative spirit, and my younger brother, Ryan, was the baby of the family. And me? I was the one they leaned on when things needed fixing, whether it was a leaky faucet, a broken laptop, or later in life, a credit card bill they forgot to pay. When I landed my first real job in tech out west, things changed. I started making decent money, nothing outrageous, but enough to help when someone called crying at 2 a.m. because their rent check bounced. Enough to front hotel bookings for holidays when mom's card declined again, or Heather's freelance gig fell through. I did it willingly. At first, a few months ago, we had our usual family group call to talk about our upcoming summer trip, a tradition we started years ago when Dad was still around. After he passed, I made sure we kept it going. It was his favorite time of year, sand between his toes, a beer in hand, and all of us together. This year, I offered to book the place early, just like I always did. I even said I'd cover the deposit. No big deal. 3 weeks passed. Then a month. The group chat was silent except for Heather occasionally sending a meme or Mom forwarding some chain message about natural remedies for heartburn. I finally texted, "Hey, what's the plan for the summer trip?" The response didn't come from Heather or Ryan, but Mom. Just a short message. "It's just too expensive to include you this year, honey. We'll figure something next time." I stared at the screen for a long time. Too expensive to include me? I thought I misread it. I called her. No answer. Called again. Straight to voicemail. I left a message. Polite, trying not to sound hurt. "Hey, just wanted to clarify the message. Let me know if there's something going on." She texted me back the next morning. "We're keeping it low-key this year. Everyone's had a hard time financially. Hope you understand." I tried to. I really did. I told myself maybe they needed a break. Maybe it wasn't personal. I buried myself in work, trying not to spiral. But then, late one Thursday night, I was scrolling through Instagram, half asleep on the couch, when Heather's post popped up. A boomerang of her and Ryan clinking cocktails, ocean in the background. The caption? Sun, sand, and sibling time blue heart hashtag Villa Vibes. Villa Vibes. I blinked. Wait, Villa? I clicked on her tag location. It was a luxury beach house rental in the same town we'd gone to for the past 6 years. I knew that place. I'd sent it to Mom as a suggestion back in April. I recognized the patio furniture, the infinity pool that dropped off into the cliffside. My hands started to shake. I scrolled through the photos. There was Mom, stretched out in a cabana with a mimosa. Ryan posing shirtless by the grill. Heather in a designer sundress, holding a sparkler at sunset. The kicker? A selfie in front of a framed welcome note. "Thanks for choosing Ocean Crest Villas. Guest, Owen Fields." My name. They used my name to book the place, which meant they'd used my account. My credit card. I stood up so fast I knocked over the glass on my coffee table. My pulse was in my ears. I went to my laptop, pulled up the confirmation email I'd received weeks ago and hadn't thought twice about. Sure enough, there it was. Reservation confirmed. Payment processed. See you July 10th to 17th. They hadn't just excluded me. They erased me. Booked the trip with my money, stayed at the villa with my name, and pretended I didn't exist. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, cycling between anger, disbelief, and hurt. I kept refreshing their socials, watching their stories as they danced, laughed, toasted to family, all while I sat alone in my apartment. The next morning, I called my bank, asked if there was any way to flag the charge. They said since I had confirmed the booking, there wasn't much they could do, unless I suspected fraud. Fraud. That word sat in my chest like a rock. I didn't respond to Mom's next message. "Hope you're doing okay, sweetie. We'll bring you something back from the beach." That's when I snapped. I booked the last-minute flight. Pricey, but I didn't care. Packed a bag with the essentials and threw on my old college hoodie, the same one Heather used to borrow when she missed me. The flight was short, but the drive to the villa felt endless. I didn't listen to music. I didn't call anyone. I just stared at the road, white-knuckling the steering wheel, rehearsing what I would say when I got there. When I finally pulled into the cul-de-sac, I sat in the car for a solid 5 minutes. just breathing. The villa looked even better in person. Warm lights glowing through the glass, laughter echoing faintly from the poolside. I could make out Ryan's voice. Then Mom's. They were talking about dinner. I walked up to the door and tried the code I always used when we rented houses. 0721, Dad's birthday. The lock clicked. They hadn't even changed it. When I opened the door, the sound hit me first. Music, clinking glasses, footsteps on tile. Heather was the first to see me. She froze mid-laugh, her cocktail tipping slightly in her hand. "What are you doing here?" she said, blinking like I was a hallucination. I dropped my duffel on the floor and stepped in. "I'm checking in," I said, calm as ever. "You've got 10 minutes to get out." And that's when Ryan stood up from the couch, confused. "Wait, what?" Heather looked at Mom, then back at me. "Owen, don't be dramatic." I pulled my phone from my pocket and held it up. Reservations in my name. Paid with my card. And I just spoke to the property manager before I walked in. Mom stepped forward, holding a wine glass. "Honey, listen. It's not what you think." I tilted my head, slowly. "Then explain it." She opened her mouth. And just then, the patio door slid open behind me. A voice called out, cheerful and unaware. "Hey, sorry to interrupt. I'm the villa manager. Just here to check in with Mr. Fields." I turned, smiled. "That's me." Mom's face turned white. And that's when the yelling began. Ryan was the first to raise his voice. "You've got to be kidding me, Owen. You flew all the way here just to what? Embarrass everyone." Heather groaned. He's always had a flair for theatrics. The villa manager, a woman maybe in her mid-40s with a clipboard tucked under one arm and a confused smile frozen on her lips, looked between us. "Is everything all right?" I turned to her, keeping my voice level. "Yes, it will be. Thank you for stopping by. I'm just sorting out a misunderstanding." She hesitated, eyes flicking to my mom and siblings, then nodded slowly. "All right. Just needed to confirm the reservation. You're all checked in, Mr. Fields. Enjoy your stay." She stepped back outside, closing the door quietly behind her. And then the air changed. Mom finally spoke, softly at first. "Owen, we weren't trying to hurt you. We just thought you wouldn't be interested this year." "Not interested?" I repeated, my voice flat. "You mean the trip I suggested? The one I booked? That I paid for?" Ryan crossed his arms. "We were going to pay you back. Eventually." "Eventually," I echoed, barely suppressing a laugh. "And when exactly was that? Before or after I saw your Instagram post thanking the universe for family bonding?" Heather sat down on the edge of the couch, avoiding my eyes. "It was Mom's idea." Mom stiffened. "Don't you dare put this on me, Heather." We all agreed. "Really?" I asked, eyebrows raised. "You all sat down and agreed not to tell me? To leave me out of the trip and still use my name, my credit, and pretend it was all fine?" Mom shifted uncomfortably. "You're always working, Owen. We thought maybe you needed a break from everything." "A break from you?" I asked, voice suddenly sharper. "That's what this is about. You've used me like a walking bank account for years. Rent, groceries, last-minute emergencies. And I never complained. Not once. But this." I stepped forward. "This was planned. Deliberate." Heather muttered something under her breath, and I turned to her. "What?" I said, "Maybe if you weren't so self-righteous all the time, we'd actually want to include you." That hit harder than I expected. I stared at her. "You think I wanted to be the one who always shows up with the solution? Who fixes everything while you pretend you're too fragile to be held accountable?" I looked around at all three of them, my voice quieter now. "Do you even know what it feels like to realize you were never actually invited? Not just to the vacation, but to the family moments? You left me out. You looked at the person who kept this whole thing afloat and said, 'He doesn't matter.'" Ryan stood up, holding his hands out. "All right, fine. You're mad. But showing up like this? Trying to kick us out? That's low." "No," I said, stepping between them and the hallway. "What's low is lying to me, pretending I wasn't invited because of budget issues while sipping wine in a villa I paid for. What's low is leaving me on read for 3 weeks and letting me find out from social media." Mom's voice trembled. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." I stared at her for a long moment. The silence dragged on, and in that stillness, I saw something flicker in her face. Not guilt. Not shame. Just fear. Fear of losing the comfortable, familiar safety net I had become. I took a deep breath. "You have 10 minutes to pack your things. I already called the company. Reservations under my name. And I just requested everyone else be removed from the guest list." Heather stood. You're serious. Dead serious. Ryan scoffed. Where are we even supposed to go? There's a cheap motel 2 towns over. Maybe if you call ahead, they'll leave the light on. Heather's mouth dropped open, but she said nothing. I turned to Mom last. She looked so small then. Smaller than I'd ever seen her. I would have paid for you all to come. Happily. I would have kept doing it, too, every year. But now? Now, I think I finally see things clearly. She took a step forward, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. Owen, 10 minutes, I said. I suggest you start with the patio cushions. I'd hate for you to forget anything. I didn't wait for them to respond. I turned and walked toward the master bedroom, my room, the one I'd specifically asked for when I booked the place. As I closed the door behind me, I heard the faint sound of footsteps scrambling, voices raised in panic and protest. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the waves beyond the glass balcony. And then, I heard someone knock. Once, twice, 3 slow taps. Then Heather's voice, muffled through the door. Owen, wait. Just let us explain. I didn't answer. Not yet. Because they didn't know the half of what I'd already done. And they were about to find out. I sat there in silence, staring at the balcony door as the knocking stopped. Heather's footsteps shuffled away, and I heard hushed voices outside in the hallway. They were probably regrouping, plotting, spinning a new version of events where they weren't the villains, maybe where I was the one overreacting. I wouldn't put it past them. I could already imagine Mom sighing dramatically, saying something like, "He's always been sensitive. Maybe we should just let him cool off." But this wasn't about me cooling off. This was about them finally feeling what I had felt for years. After a few minutes, I got up and walked over to the dresser. Inside was a little welcome packet, maps of the area, local restaurant recommendations, and, tucked in the back, the villa's Wi-Fi info and smart home settings. I smiled. With a few taps on my phone, I pulled up the connected app one used to manage the reservation, something none of them had bothered to notice in their rush to celebrate without me. I opened the guest list and began removing users. First, Heather Fields. Then Ryan Fields. Then Marla Fields, my mom. I hit save. A pop-up asked, remove access to Wi-Fi, smart locks, thermostat, and media system for these guests? I tapped yes without hesitation. The villa suddenly felt different. Mine. Not just legally, but emotionally. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just the wallet. I was the one making the decisions. I opened the bedroom door and stepped back into the hallway. Ryan was standing near the kitchen island, halfway through stuffing a bottle of wine into his duffel bag. Seriously? I said, nodding at the bottle. He looked up and gave me that smug little smirk he always wore when he thought he had the upper hand. We were going to open it tonight anyway. Well, now you can open it somewhere else. He scoffed. Come on, Owen. It's a bottle of wine. It's about respect. And the fact that you're still trying to take something from me after everything pretty much proves my point. Heather appeared behind him, holding her phone. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. We get it, you're upset. Can we please just talk like adults? You had your chance, I said. But instead of talking to me, you planned an entire trip behind my back, used my money, my name, and then acted shocked when I showed up. Mom came around the corner then, her face red and tired, a suitcase rolling behind her. I don't know what you want from us, Owen, she said softly. Accountability, I answered. But I don't think I'll get that, so I'll settle for space. The kind you all so generously gave me when you decided I wasn't invited. She opened her mouth to respond, but then something strange happened. Her phone beeped, and she frowned. Why is the Wi-Fi down? I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Because I removed your access. Ryan looked up. What? I pulled my phone from my pocket and turned the screen toward them. Smart home controls. Also turns off the AC and the speakers. And a locks. They looked at each other, suddenly realizing how quiet it had gotten. The gentle hum of the air conditioning had stopped. The music in the living room was gone. Even the television in the corner, which had been running a loop of beach footage, had cut to black. You're insane, Heather said. I shrugged. Just tech savvy. But if it makes you feel better, I also scheduled a rideshare to be here in 6 minutes. You'll want to be ready. Ryan laughed bitterly. You think you can just throw us out? I don't think, I said, stepping closer, voice calm but firm. I know. And the villa manager knows too. She made it clear I had full rights to the property. You all are technically trespassing now. Mom looked at the floor. Heather opened her mouth like she was going to argue, but no words came. Ryan muttered something about how this was so not over. But even he started zipping up his duffel bag. I watched them scramble, stuffing things into bags, checking their phones, which still had no connection. The power was still on, for now, but I disabled their profiles. No lights would work in their rooms. No streaming. No music. Just silence, and the slow realization that they weren't in control anymore. I went back to the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of water, and leaned against the counter as they made their way toward the front door. The tension in the air was so thick, you could feel it pressing against your chest. The doorbell rang. Right on time. Heather turned around, her suitcase rolling behind her. "You're seriously doing this? You seriously deserve this," I replied. The driver waited outside as they all shuffled past me one by one. Ryan didn't look at me. Mom gave me a look that was more exhaustion than anger. And Heather, she lingered. "You're really not the person I thought you were," she said quietly. I stared back at her. "Good. Maybe now you'll stop thinking I'm a doormat." She blinked, then stepped outside, the door closing behind her with a soft click. I stood there in the silence, not moving, just breathing, listening to the wind and the faint sound of waves rolling in from the cliffs. And then I noticed something. Their bags were gone. Their voices were fading. But they'd left something behind. On the hallway table, a handwritten card. I walked over, picked it up, and opened it. It wasn't an apology. It was worse. It was a bill. Folded inside the card, with Mom's handwriting on the envelope, was a receipt from a high-end seafood restaurant down the beach. Dated 2 nights ago. Total, $468.32. A little note scribbled underneath in Heather's handwriting. "Since you're covering the trip, figured you'd want to keep this for your records," smiley face. I stared at it for a long time, the paper crinkling slightly in my fist. And that's when I made the next call. Because they didn't know that the revenge wasn't over yet. Not even close. I held that receipt in my hand like it was radioactive. My first instinct was to laugh, not because it was funny, but because the audacity had gone beyond infuriating. It had reached some twisted level of irony I couldn't even process at first. They knew what they were doing. Even after being confronted, humiliated, kicked out, they still thought I'd pick up the tab like always. Like clockwork. I walked into the living room, sat down on the couch they'd all lounged on for the past few days, and stared at the waves through the giant glass doors. The villa was quiet now. No fake laughs, no staged selfies, no one draining my account behind my back. Just me and the faint sound of the ocean rolling against the cliffs. And I wasn't done yet. I opened the app again and navigated to the billing settings for the villa. My card was still linked to the reservation, but I had a backup plan. I called the rental company directly and got a woman named Larissa on the line. I explained what had happened, calmly, respectfully, even though my jaw was clenched the entire time. To my surprise, Larissa didn't sound shocked. "This actually happens more often than you'd think," she said with a sigh. "People using someone else's info, making it look like a group trip, then sticking them with the bill. But since the reservation was under your name and your payment method, you do have recourse. Which is, you're eligible for an incident report. You can flag the reservation as fraudulent use, and we'll freeze the remaining charges and refund a portion, especially if the unauthorized guests have already vacated." How much of a refund? We'd have to calculate based on damage, usage, and remaining nights. But you may be able to recoup most of the cost. I felt my shoulders relax for the first time in hours. "Do it." She paused. "Would you like to submit a list of items they used or damaged?" I thought about the wine Ryan tried to smuggle out. The guest towels. The Bluetooth speaker that wasn't where it had been yesterday. "Yes," I said. "And send me the official report. I'll need it for something else." "Of course," she replied. "Anything else I can do?" "Actually, yeah. Can you send a notification to all removed guests confirming they've been flagged from future rentals under this property group?" Larissa didn't miss a beat. "Consider it done." After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of water and sat back, heart still racing. Because I wasn't just going to leave it there. A part of me, the part that had been silent and patient for far too long, was ready to draw a line that couldn't be erased. I opened my laptop and logged into the shared family cloud account, the same one I'd created years ago when I was trying to help Mom organize her finances. It was where I stored everything for them, scanned receipts, trip itineraries, even family medical records. They never changed the password. They probably forgot it even existed. I uploaded the villa confirmation, the email thread, and Larissa's incident report. I attached the seafood receipt with Heather's little smirk of a message. And then I added a final PDF, a simple letter I typed up right then and there. To Mom, Heather, and Ryan. Effective immediately, I will no longer be covering any financial expenses for any of you. This includes, but is not limited to, rent, groceries, vacations, emergencies, car payments, and last-minute favors. I've canceled all linked accounts and removed my name from any subscriptions or services you may have attached me to. Going forward, if you attempt to use my identity or financial information for any reason, I will treat it as fraud and respond accordingly, legally. This was not a difficult decision. You made it easy. Owen. I titled the folder Final Transaction. Then I logged out and deleted the shared access from all their devices. 2 hours later, I got the first text. Heather, are you serious? You cancel my phone plan? Then Ryan. Bro, I need my Netflix back. And finally, Mom. I don't understand what you're doing. This feels extreme. We're family. I didn't respond. Not at first. I let the silence stretch, just like they had let mine stretch for weeks when I was asking about the trip. It wasn't until the next morning that I replied. One text. One line. Family doesn't steal from each other and call it love. They didn't respond after that. But I wasn't done. There was one more move I had to make. I contacted my dad's old attorney. He handled Dad's estate, and even though we hadn't spoken in years, he still remembered me. I explained the situation, especially the part about my name being used without consent. He asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no, but I did ask him to revise the letter of intent that outlined future inheritance rights, something my mom never thought I knew about. Turns out, after Dad passed, she had quietly set things up so that all 3 kids would inherit equally, no matter who contributed what. I changed that. The attorney agreed that given the new documentation and financial burden I'd taken on, I had grounds to challenge the arrangement and protect my contributions. It was official within a week. They wouldn't see a cent from anything tied to my name again, not unless I chose to give it. And I wouldn't. Not after that summer. The rest of the trip, I stayed at the villa, alone, and it was peaceful. I walked along the beach in the mornings, read books on the balcony, cooked my own meals, and watched the sunset without the weight of performative togetherness. For the first time in years, I wasn't performing. I wasn't overextending, placating, or trying to earn a seat at a table that didn't respect me. I made peace with it, and with myself. On the last day, before I locked up, I left a note on the kitchen counter. Nothing dramatic, just 4 simple words. Not yours anymore, Owen. And I meant it. When I got back home, I blocked all 3 of them. I knew they'd try again eventually, with apologies, justifications, crocodile tears. But by then, I had rebuilt my boundaries into something solid, something permanent. I still get birthday cards from Mom. Still see Heather post about family love online. Still hear through mutual friends that Ryan's struggling with bills and that he doesn't understand why Owen turned into such a fool. Let them wonder. Let them sit with the silence they created. Because in the end, I didn't just take back my vacation. I took back my dignity, my peace, and I never looked back.